"Hey, would you divorce me?" As I was preparing supper, I was taken aback by my husband's sudden request and turned around in surprise. "What? What did you just say?" I said, "I want a divorce." "What are you talking about? Our baby is going to be born in less than a month, you know?" My husband, who had just come back from work, thrust the divorce papers at me without even changing his clothes. "I've fallen in love with someone else. She's pregnant, so I have no choice, right? I want to start a family with her. Unlike you, she's happy to take care of me and needs me." I could not understand what my husband was saying. Although our marriage had been rocky lately, I never dreamed he would actually ask for a divorce. "Why? Why would you say that? I care about you and need you too." I desperately tried to stop him, but it seemed my words no longer reached his heart. "Sorry, but we don't need you anymore. Do you understand what I mean? My mom agrees with the divorce." With those words, he left me, heavily pregnant, with the divorce papers. 3 years later, I ran into my ex-husband while shopping at the mall. "Isn't that Kristen? Long time no see. How's it going being a single mother? Your family was poor, so you must be struggling, right?" I felt disgusted seeing my ex-husband's smug face. He started bragging about his life without me asking. After that, I remarried the daughter of a real estate agent. We had a son, and now I'm living happily. He kept talking, taking advantage of my silence. Now I'm working with my wife's family. With the real estate income, I'm set for life. Jealous, aren't you? Make sure you work hard, for the sake of your child. He laughed in a vulgar manner, looking down on me. I asked, "Which real estate agency?" while he continued to laugh. The name he mentioned was well known in the area, and even I was familiar with it. "Ah, so you married the daughter from there?" "I'm working in real estate now too." Seeing the business card I handed him, his face quickly turned sour. Fate has a sense of irony. We hadn't seen each other for years, and to encounter each other now. I had no intention of taking revenge, but this reunion would lead to my ex-husband's downfall. I am Kristen, 34 years old, living with my husband and mother-in-law. My husband, Justin, and I met again at the real estate agency where I worked. 6 years after we were classmates in college. I've been promoted to chief at work. My salary has increased a bit, so I'm thinking about moving to a bigger place. I never expected to find you working here. It's impressive you're a chief at your age. Let's look for something convenient for your commute, shall we? We were only classmates in the same seminar and didn't talk much. I felt sorry for him because he spoke to me in a friendly manner. Even so, since we were classmates at the same university, we had a lot to talk about during the apartment viewing. Would you mind exchanging the numbers? It's fun talking with you, Kristen. Yes, I'd like to chat again too. After several visits, we exchanged phone numbers on the day the rental agreement was finalized. This led to us going out together, and 2 years later, he proposed to me. The day my husband came to greet my parents, they welcomed him with open arms. My husband, who had been nervous, relaxed and smiled. "Justin, please take good care of Kristen. She's a reliable and good kid, though she lacks a bit of femininity." "Dad, stop it. You're the one who raised me to be an independent woman since I was a child." The husband laughed heartily. "That's not true at all. Kristen is cute, kind, and a wonderful woman." I blushed at my husband's words, which he said without any embarrassment, while both my parents smiled happily. The atmosphere, which had been a bit awkward, felt instantly warmer. My parents work the fields and run a farmer's market in partnership with neighboring farmers. It's located along a main road and has a large parking lot. making it a popular spot in the area that's always bustling with people. That evening, my two brothers and their wives also came over. And we had a dinner party that turned into a drinking session. On the way home, my tipsy husband muttered, "You have a nice family." But I was surprised to learn that the farmer's market is Kristen's family's business. I wasn't trying to hide it. Our family tradition dictates that the eldest son inherits everything, so it doesn't really concern me. What? Really? Well, I guess there's no point in inheriting fields and a market. Kristen is the youngest daughter, after all.
Yeah.
Well, I was a bit miffed by his comment, but my husband, sitting in the passenger seat, seemed to have already dozed off. I focused on driving and soon forgot about it. Then, it was my turn to be nervous. We were heading to my in-laws' house in the next state. And I was on pins and needles during the 2-hour drive until we arrived. Now you understand how I felt last time, right?
Yeah.
Sorry for laughing. I didn't realize meeting the parents would be so nerve-wracking. As I nervously pressed the doorbell, my mother-in-law greeted me with a warm smile, easing my tension. "Kristen, this guy has been an only child, so he's a bit spoiled. If he becomes too selfish, I'll scold him, so feel free to contact me anytime." Exactly. He always wants everything done for him, which can be bothersome. My in-laws laughed out loud, and my husband's face turned bright red. "Hey! Stop it. That was when I was a kid. How old do you think I am now?" I felt happy to become part of such a bright and kind family. However, I was unaware that my husband's character, casually mentioned by my in-laws, would later become a cause for our marital discord. Our married life began with me moving into the condo where my husband lived. It was a place we chose together when we reunited, and it held sentimental value for both of us. We decided to split the living expenses and household chores equally, as I was also working. I was in charge of cooking. But I thought there would be no problem since my husband had lived alone for a long time. "Hey! Didn't you run the washing machine yesterday? Look how much has piled up." Sorry. I ran out of time. Can you take care of it today? As days passed, my husband began to make excuses and push household chores onto me. Hey! We agreed at the beginning, right? This is too much for me. One day, as my frustration reached a peak, my husband suggested changing the rules. You know, I've been thinking. Maybe you could do all the housework? I'll cover more of the living expenses. I believed that a couple should always have an equal relationship. But it seemed my husband felt differently. Having my wife take care of the house makes me really feel married, you know? It also makes me feel loved. Then, where am I supposed to feel loved? When we have a child, even if you quit your job, I will protect our family. When he said such a manly thing in immediate response, I lost the desire to argue with him. Well, doing chores for two wasn't that big of a deal anyway. And then, my husband really started doing nothing at all. What became problematic was that he turned into a leave-it person. Leaving clothes where he took them off, dishes where he ate, and things out where he used them. I finally understood what my in-laws meant by "he wants everything done for him." And I was disappointed. I think I made several mistakes in how I dealt with things, but as advised. Occasionally had my father-in-law scold him over the phone. And somehow we managed to live happily together. However, about 2 years after we got married, my father-in-law suddenly passed away. It was an acute myocardial infarction. Given their good relationship, my mother-in-law's shock must have been considerable. Relatives worried about her kept calling my husband. "Kristen, I can't leave Mom alone. So I was thinking of bringing her here to live with us. Is that okay?" I understood his concern and had a good relationship with my mother-in-law, so I agreed. But this place is too small, so let's move to a bigger place. Mom will need a room of her own, too. Right. I'll look for some good properties. Thus, 3 months after my father-in-law's death, we began living with my mother-in-law. Kristen, thank you so much for living together. I never thought he would be gone so soon. I really miss him too. Let's live well together, the three of us. Even after moving in, my mother-in-law spent a lot of time in her room initially, but gradually started spending more time in the living room and regained her spirits. Perhaps losing her husband of many years changed her personality a bit. Hey, did you always eat dinner this late? Sorry, since the store closes at 6 p.m. By the time I clean up and return home, it ends up being this time. It hadn't bothered us when it was just the two of us. But indeed, dinner after 8 p.m. was too late for a waiting mother-in-law. Sighing, she started helping with dinner preparations and household chores the next day. Instead, the petty complaints against me increased. For someone married, isn't coming home this late a lack of awareness as a wife? Now that you've started living with me, shouldn't you quit your job and focus on household duties? Sorry. I thought I'd work until we have children to save up. Using the word children from me seemed to prompt a question from her. Hey, you've been married for over 2 years now, right? Are you seriously thinking about children? I don't know when something might happen to me, so please let me see my grandchild soon. My husband and I looked at each other. The truth was, we had been using contraception for the past 2 years because we weren't planning on having children. That night, before going to bed, my husband murmured to me, "Maybe Mom is lonely without any friends here. Should we start seriously considering having children? Maybe. Let's stop using contraception and leave it to nature." So, we started trying to get pregnant, but as it often happens, it wasn't easy when you actually want it. Months passed without any signs of pregnancy for me. After a year, I even started to feel anxious. My husband's mood worsened, and he began to blame me. Why can't we have a child? Is there something wrong with your body? I don't know. It could have been you. Though it was a tit-for-tat situation, our relationship became strained over the fertility issue. This is bad. I decided it was time to have a serious talk with my husband. Hey, how about we go to the hospital together? We can't keep trying for a baby like this, right? With things being like this, perhaps my husband had some thoughts as well. For after a moment of contemplation, he nodded slightly. Indeed. Let's try that. Book an appointment for next week, please. Got it. The following week, we visited a clinic specializing in fertility treatment. We promised each other that we would not blame anyone regardless of where the issue lay. However, the results later showed that there was no issue with either of us. Perhaps it was the relief from getting the results, but 3 months later, it seemed unbelievable that after all our worries, my period was late, and we found out I was pregnant. With the pregnancy, I decided to leave the company I had been with for 10 years. We could live comfortably on just my husband's salary without luxuries. So I planned to focus on childcare for a while after giving birth. My mother-in-law's attitude changed drastically with the pregnancy. Leave all the housework to me during your pregnancy. Kristen, please take it easy and give birth to a healthy baby. She was genuinely happy about my pregnancy and became kind to me like she used to be. However, the change in attitude wasn't just with my mother-in-law. Initially happy about the pregnancy, my husband became indifferent to me as if he had fulfilled his role. I wondered if the pregnancy was just for the sake of his mother. This is making me lose my appetite. I'm going to eat out. As morning sickness started, my husband visibly disliked it and clicked his tongue at my negative mood due to hormonal changes. Like during our fertility journey, he had a habit of blaming others when things didn't go his way. Hey, why would you say that? The baby inside me is yours, you know? A man's job is up until conception, raising the child is a woman's job. Don't take your frustrations out on me. Perhaps due to hormonal effects, I was sensitive to my husband's words. And we started having big fights every day. One day, due to stress, I started bleeding and panicked. There was nothing wrong with the baby, but I was in tears, and my mother-in-law, who accompanied me to the hospital, spoke kindly to me. Why don't you go back to your parents' house until you reach a stable period? A little distance might help both of you calm down. Maybe you're right. It was around the end of first trimester, but I decided to go back to my parents' house for a while. Putting physical distance between my husband and me helped me regain peace of mind. And I was finally able to enjoy a calm maternity life. However, with me not around, my husband's behavior might have become unrestrained. According to my mother-in-law, he started coming home less often. The small rift between my husband and me would grow into an irreparable gap. I returned home when I was close to giving birth. Since going back to my parents' house, I had only minimal contact with my husband. And frankly, I didn't want to return home until the birth. One day, I got a rare call from my husband. Hello? When are you planning to come back? We need to talk about the future, so come back soon.
Yeah.
You're right. Sorry. I'll be back soon. Feeling slightly relieved that he called, I teared up. It's amazing how hormonal effects can make you cry over something so minor. Along with the tears, my stubborn heart seemed to melt away. With a changed mindset, I returned home cheerfully. But the atmosphere in the house felt slightly different after a long absence. I'm back. Thank you for everything while I was away, Mother. Welcome back. Your belly has grown so much. She said that looking at my belly, but her eyes seemed a bit sad. I'll take care of everything around the house. You just rest in your room. He's busy with work and will be home late today. Although my mother-in-law was as kind as ever, she seemed a bit deflated and less energetic. That day, my husband returned home past midnight. As he slid in beside me, already asleep, I could smell a shampoo scent that wasn't from our home on him. Was he really at work? Amidst my doubts and anxieties, I had no chance to speak before I began to hear the sound of his breathing, indicating he had quickly fallen asleep next to me. The next day, my mother-in-law said she would be going to visit her sister in the neighboring state overnight, so I was left at home. I thought I would make something delicious and wait for my husband's return. I had told him to come home early in the morning, forgetting about last night's incident. I was thinking of repairing the relationship with my husband for the sake of our child. Tonight, I'll make a lot of his favorite fried chicken. The lively sound of frying filled the kitchen. Hey, would you divorce me? Suddenly, my husband spoke from behind, and I turned around in surprise. I was so focused on frying the chicken that I hadn't noticed his return. What did you just say? I said, I want a divorce. His unexpected words seemed to freeze my thoughts. What are you talking about? Our baby is going to be born in less than a month. While I stood in the kitchen, my husband, without changing clothes, thrust a divorce paper at me. I've fallen in love with someone else. She's pregnant, so I have no choice, right? I want to start a family with her. Unlike you, she's happy to take care of me and needs me. I couldn't understand what my husband was saying. Indeed, our relationship had been strained recently. And he had come home yesterday wearing a fragrance of a shampoo I didn't recognize. However, I had never dreamed he would bring up divorce. Why would you say such a thing? I care about you and need you too. I desperately tried to stop him, but it seemed my words no longer reached his heart. I've been wanting to quit my current job because it's too busy. Then she told me to come work at her company. A man wouldn't choose a woman who doesn't have money and won't take care of him, right? What are you going to tell your mother? I had no idea he had been wanting to quit his job. Maybe there was a deeper chasm between us than I thought. We don't need you anymore. Do you understand what I mean? My mom agrees with the divorce. I swallowed hard. The strange behavior of my mother-in-law and her being away from home today and tomorrow all made sense now. The frying oil, which had quieted down, sputtered loudly. I turned off the fire and faced my husband. We are going to have a baby soon. I'll leave the child to you. We'll talk about compensation and child support later. I'm going to her place, so please pack your things by tonight and leave tomorrow. Are you abandoning your role as a father? Exactly. I don't need a child from a poor bride. After saying that, my husband left, leaving me with the divorce papers and my heavily pregnant self. Alone in the quiet house, I felt like my head was going to explode with anger and frustration.
Ah.
I screamed, venting the dark and heavy emotions in my chest. And then collapsed on the kitchen floor, crying. I wanted to leave all my resentment, hatred, sadness, and pain in this house. After a good cry, I calmed down and called my older brother for help. Later, through lawyers, we discussed compensation with my husband. But his mistress did not appear. The total amount for compensation and child support exceeded $100,000. Which was quite a lot, but my husband seemed unfazed. That amount is fine. In return, I want you to never get involved with me again. And I braced myself for more demands. I want you to keep it a secret that I divorced because of the affair. Also, I don't want you to pry too deeply into my partner. What? If you agree to keep it secret, I'll pay the compensation and child support in one lump sum. I found myself staring directly into my husband's eyes. There seemed to be no deceit in them. I didn't want to know anything about his partner, and if this meant cutting ties cleanly with him, it was actually more convenient for me. All right. I'll agree to those terms. But in return, or rather, I have the same demand. Never get involved with me and our child again. If you don't, I might just reveal your secrets. My husband frowned for a moment but then silently nodded. The following week, true to his promise, a lump sum payment was deposited into my account. And thus our 4-year marriage was officially over. 3 years have passed since then. After the divorce, I gave birth to a beautiful girl and we are still living at my parents' house. I really troubled my family, but they have been a great support. It took time for my emotional wounds to heal. But having my daughter made me push through everything. Now, I'm working with my younger brother. A few years ago, he started a property management company. But my return prompted us to also focus on real estate sales and leasing. It's busy but fulfilling. One day, while I was shopping at a mall, my ex-husband appeared before me. Isn't that Kristen? Long time no see. How's it going being a single mother? Your family was poor, so you must be struggling, right? I was displeased to see my ex-husband's smirking face. He started bragging about his life without me asking. After that, I remarried the daughter of a real estate agent. We had a son, and now we're living happily. He continued talking, taking my silence as an opportunity to go on. Now I'm working with my wife's family. With the real estate income, I'm set for life. Jealous, aren't you? Make sure you work hard, for the sake of your child. My ex-husband laughed condescendingly from his high horse. No? Which real estate agency? Brown Real Estate. You must have heard of it, right? As my ex-husband boasted, I couldn't help but smile. The name he mentioned was well known in the area and familiar to me as well.
Ah.
So you married the daughter from there. I thought it might be you because Brown is a common name. What a coincidence. I'm also working in real estate now. I handed him my business card. His face quickly turned sour. Fate is indeed ironic. We hadn't seen each other in 3 years, and yet, here we were. Running into each other at this moment. Foster Real Estate. Were you lying to me? In fact, my father owns a lot of land in this area. By now, my ex-husband should be well aware of that. In our family, preserving the land inherited from our ancestors is a priority. So the person who takes over as head of the family inherits everything. We prioritize maintaining the status quo, so we live a normal life without extravagance. Which might not seem wealthy at first glance. Lying? About an inheritance I'm not even receiving? I thought I mentioned that before. By the way, how's your wife's company doing? His face turned pale in an instant. I learned after starting to work with my younger brother that our grandfather and the previous CEO of Brown Real Estate were close friends, handling land use and management for many years. However, the situation changed when the CEO passed away from illness a few years ago, and his son took over. There's a bad rumor going around that the quality of your work has deteriorated. There seem to be increasing complaints from clients. What's going on? The young CEO in his 30s is becoming known in the local real estate industry as the clueless CEO. By trying to chase quick profits with too few staff, the management has become sloppy. Recently, my father has also been troubled by direct complaints from clients. That's why my younger brother, who had experience in the real estate industry, decided to start a management company to help out, marking a significant development over the past few years. Seeing my ex-husband looking downcast, I thought it was a waste of time to continue this conversation. I'm leaving now. From now on, if you see me, don't call out to me. You're bothering me. Ignoring the weak call of my ex-husband, I left the scene. I had no intention of retaliating for what happened back then. But this reunion would curse him, leading to his downfall into hell. When I returned home, I shared the story of my encounter with my ex-husband with my parents and 2 brothers. What? His partner was the daughter from the Brown place? I can't complain since the president passed away, but I can't forgive this. We showed mercy because of old times. Dad, we can stop now, right? I agree. Let's cut ties with Brown Real Estate. For the past few months, there has been a recurring topic in our house. Most of the management of the family's land and buildings had been entrusted to the younger brother's company. But some were still left with Brown Real Estate due to a long-standing relationship. Everyone agreed to transition everything to the younger brother's company after this incident. If you hadn't met him today, we might still have been dealing with him, Father said, laughing as if he found it amusing. If there's a god of fate, they must love playing tricks, I thought. Finally, my ex-husband felt like a thing of the past, and I felt good. However, about 2 months later, I received a call from my ex-husband, whom I thought was completely in the past. It was from an unknown number, and I accidentally answered, thinking it was a client. Hello, Kristen? Please, save me. You're the only one who can save me now. Because your family pulled out, I'm being forced to work for free now. Please, can you return the $100,000 I gave you at that time? Every day is truly hell. What? Before I could speak, a voice echoed in my head. What are you talking about? Most of that was child support, you know? I know. But if I don't return that money, my wife's company will kill me. Please, help me. Such a foolish person. The money paid in one lump sum was provided by the lover's father. The previous president, famous for doting on his daughter, had compensated for the compensation and child support, wishing for his daughter's happiness. However, there was no way he would do such a thing without a promise. If he divorced and betrayed his daughter, he had to repay the money in full. If he couldn't, he would work at the real estate agency until the child reached adulthood as repayment. That was the agreement they made. The previous president had a ruthless way of ensuring his daughter's happiness, while not trusting the man who had an affair. Maybe it's better for you to keep working as you are now? If you get divorced, you'll be asked for the same amount of compensation and child support. If you're the daughter of a real estate owner, you won't have trouble finding a place to live. And you actually have a job, right? On the other end of the phone, my ex-husband pleaded, crying. Please. After the child was born, she stopped caring about me and only took care of the child. I'm being treated poorly, now sleeping and living in the office. Wow. I couldn't help but let out a laugh. There were rumors that the daughter of Brown Real Estate could ruin men with her care. And it seemed to be true. After getting married, it appears her care shifted from her husband to their child. Do you know how much I cherished you? I realize it now. My mother regrets betraying you too. Hey, can't we start over? I still love you. The creepy whisper made me shudder. There's no way we can start over. You were the one who left us. You were blinded by money. You chose this life. Don't say disgusting things. I was fed up with the sound of my ex-husband's sobbing voice in my ear. Don't you ever call me again. I said just that loudly and hung up the phone, then set it to block incoming calls from him. I hoped that would be the end of it. Reflecting on my ex-husband's behavior made me feel depressed. 3 days later, my ex-husband showed up at my parents' house unannounced. It seems my bad feeling was right on target. Moreover, he brought his mother, who looked significantly older than she did 3 years ago. Kristen, I'm truly sorry. I've reflected on my actions and I want your forgiveness. Instead of asking for money as I expected, my ex-husband started saying something unpleasant. After thinking it over, I realized I was happiest when I was with you. If you're still single, how about we start over with our child? I want to eat your fried chicken again. I was disgusted, and remembering the sound of frying oil that day made me angry. There's a limit to how much one can be ridiculed. Kristen, I'm truly sorry for what happened before. When I heard she was the daughter of a company president, I wished for my son's secure future without thinking. But I was wrong. I want to see my grandchild too. Her betrayal was a shock at the time, but now her words meant nothing to me. More than anything, I couldn't believe my ex-husband brought his elderly mother all this way. I will never forgive you for what you've done, nor will I ever let you meet my child. Please leave. My fiancé, who was visiting, came out upon hearing my loud voice. What's going on? Why are you raising your voice? Do you need something from my wife? Wife? You're married? My ex-husband and his mother were shocked, their hands over their mouths. Seeing their shock, I decided it was time to let them know about my fiancé. Yes, I'm married and living happily with my child and husband. Could you please not disturb us? My fiancé put his arm around me protectively, warding off my ex-husband and his mother. Seeing my ex-husband's face fall into despair, I delivered the final blow. And you, have you forgotten the promise you made when we divorced? My ex-husband was silent, apparently forgetting the inconvenient truths. Stay away from me and my child forever. If you can't do that, I'll spread the word about your affair marriage throughout the industry. Imagine what would happen then. My ex-husband, reminded of his past actions, turned pale and started trembling. Please. I was wrong. I'll stay away. Just don't let the president and her hear about today. I beg you. I'm truly sorry. My ex-husband pleaded desperately, then hastily pulled his confused mother away and left. It's unlikely he will ever visit us again. There might have been more written in the contract I had with the previous president. After they left, my fiancé and I shared a relieved look. Later, it seemed that the president of Brown Real Estate was dismissed due to poor performance. However, regaining lost trust was difficult. And my ex-husband is still working hard at the now understaffed company. My ex-mother-in-law is also being made to clean the managed apartments daily. The marriage they chose for a secure future had brought the opposite outcome. I hope my ex-husband will stop harboring delusions of being cherished forever. And start valuing his family instead. Happiness is unattainable as long as one keeps blaming others. I'm about to marry a junior colleague of my younger brother who works at the same company. He adores my daughter as if she were his own child. Let's live well together as a family of 3. I will protect both of you. Yes. I will also protect you both with my life. After a terrible divorce 3 years ago, I am thinking of building a happy family that cares for each other this time, while repaying the family that has supported me and my daughter.
My first experience battling illness turned out to be much harder than I had imagined. I couldn't move like I wanted, and breathing was difficult. My husband, who scorned me during my illness, saying, "I don't need a bald, skinny woman." While my body was screaming in pain, the discovery of my husband's affair made my heart scream too. He cheated on me in such a condition. I will never forgive him. I will definitely cure this disease and make him realize his mistake. My name is Ashley, I'm 30 years old. I was living happily with my husband Sean, whom I married a year ago. Then one day, on my way home from work, I was struck by unbearable pain and collapsed at the station. I was taken by an ambulance to a hospital and, after a thorough examination, it was revealed that I had cancer. Cancer. Me? There must be some mistake. I had never been seriously ill before and had always been healthy. This diagnosis of cancer was cruel to someone like me. Fortunately, it's not too late. But we need to start treatment immediately, it's definitely dangerous. The doctor's words hit me like a blow to the head. Wait a minute. I never had any issues in the company's health checkups. It's not unusual for diseases to go undetected in company health checkups. As in your case, it's only after proper examinations like tumor markers and brain scans that we can find them. That can't be. Please come back later with a family member. We'll decide on a treatment plan. My vision blurred at the doctor's words. I couldn't believe what was happening to my body. When I left the consultation room, there were numerous missed calls from my husband on my phone. He had been contacted when I was taken in the ambulance. He had rushed to the hospital but couldn't find me, so he kept calling. When I told him my location over the phone, Sean came right away. The moment I saw his face, I burst into tears. "Sean, what should I do? I have cancer." "Cancer? Ashley? That can't be true. I don't want to believe it either. But, the doctor said we need to start treatment right away or it'll be too late. That's terrible. Sean, what should I do? Am I going to die?" "Don't talk like that. You're going to be fine. Please, don't say things like that. In the presence of other patients, I cried in my husband's arms. I had no energy to care about others. Clinging to Sean was the only way I could keep myself together. The next day, Sean and I went back to the hospital to discuss treatment plans with my primary doctor. As expected, I had to be hospitalized immediately and start chemotherapy. It had only been a year since we got married. Sean and I had to live apart. Yet, he tried to cheer me up by visiting me at the hospital almost every day. Ashley, I'm here. How are you feeling today? Sean, aren't you busy with work? You don't have to force yourself to come. What are you saying? You are more important than work. But don't worry about that. Oh, I bought apples. You like them, right? Thank you. But I've been feeling nauseous due to the side effects. Oh, sorry. I also bought drinks and jello, so eat them when you can. Yeah. I will. Thank you, Sean. The first experience of battling illness was far harder than I imagined, and it took a toll on my body. Nausea, lethargy, and my hair falling out in large amounts every day. I couldn't eat properly and rapidly lost weight. I used to think about dieting, but that feels like a thought I had a million years ago. I never imagined losing weight this way. I was experiencing suffering for the first time, and my heart and body were screaming. But that wasn't all. Every time Sean visited, he started to avoid looking at me. You've lost a lot of weight, haven't you? Sean, will you hold my hand? When I reached out to him, he hesitated and then left the room saying, Sorry. I was shocked by his attitude. Why? Did I do something wrong? Why do I have to go through this alone? I was just living a normal life with Sean. Every day was filled with self-loathing, unable to think about anyone else. I thought, why me? Why is this happening to me every day? Why me? Why is this happening to me every day? Yet, I managed to continue my fight thanks to my best friend Lucy. I couldn't tell anyone about my cancer, but I could talk to her. When I contacted her, Lucy immediately came to the hospital. Since then, despite her busy schedule, she made time to visit Mel. Ashley, I'm here. Ah, Lucy, you came last week too, thank you. It's okay. I'm free anyway. It's more fun talking with you. Thank you. But I'm like this now. Like what? Look, my hair has fallen out. I'm completely different from before, aren't I? That's why I thought maybe you're feeling obliged. Lucy let out a big sigh and said with a slightly angry look, Hey, do you know how long we've been best friends, Ashley? It's been 10 years. 10 years. That's true, but just because your appearance has changed a bit doesn't make me like you less. Don't belittle my feelings for you, okay? Lucy. So don't worry about it. I come here because I want to see you, that's all. Yeah. More importantly, get better soon. Remember that parfait shop we wanted to go to? We still haven't been there. Yeah, you're right. Thank you, Lucy. Lucy held my hand while gently encouraging me. Having her there allowed me to vent frustrations I couldn't even share with my husband. As time passed, about 2 months later, something started bothering me. Sean, who had been visiting almost daily since my hospitalization, hadn't shown up lately. When I texted him, he only replied, Can't make it. Working late. Feeling increasingly lonely, I decided to call him. Hello? Sean? He picked up the phone right away, perhaps because it was his lunch break. "Ah, Ashley. What's up? I haven't seen you lately. Just wanted to hear your voice." "Ah. I see. But sorry, I'm a bit busy right now." "What? But isn't it your lunch break?" "I have things to do." "Sorry, but I've got to hang up." "Wait, Sean." The call was abruptly ended, and he didn't respond to any messages after that. Why? He used to visit me so often. Could it be that something happened while I was away? Just when I started harboring such anxieties, my best friend Lucy came to visit with an unusually gloomy face. She tried to act normal, but I could tell something was different. "Hey Lucy. Is something wrong?" My question visibly unsettled her. "Huh? Why?" "Nothing's wrong. But you seem different than usual. Like you're forcing yourself to be cheerful." "Really, it's nothing. By the way, did you see the news? That comedian you like." "Lucy, please. Tell me the truth." As I stared directly into her eyes, Lucy awkwardly looked away. After a moment of silence, she started speaking softly. "Actually, I saw something yesterday." "Saw something? What did you see?" "I saw your husband Sean walking arm in arm with another woman." "What?" "I'm sorry to say this suddenly. Maybe I was mistaken." Her words sent me into a panic. "Sean cheating with another woman?" "No, he wouldn't do something like that. But he hasn't come to the hospital lately, could it be?" I decided to tell Lucy everything I knew. "Listen, Lucy. I think what you saw was indeed Sean." "What? Why would you think that?" "Sean hasn't visited the hospital for the past 2 weeks. And he lied to me yesterday, saying he was working late. I can't believe Sean would do something like that. I called his office yesterday. He said he was busy and hung up quickly. I wondered why at the time, but it makes sense if he's cheating." Ashley. "Hey Lucy, I have a favor to ask." I decided to have Lucy investigate Sean on my behalf. She went to a detective agency and requested an investigation into his activities. 1 week later, when I saw Lucy again, her expression was gloomy, and I immediately sensed that the investigation results were not good. She hesitated to speak, so I tried to start the conversation with a smile. "Lucy, the investigation is done, right? Thank you for arranging that. Can I see the results?" Ashley. "Maybe it's better if you don't see this." "It's okay. I've already braced myself for it. But it's fine." I took the envelope from her and checked the contents. There were photos of Sean holding hands and kissing another woman in the street. I was furious, trembling as I held the photos. He was doing such things behind my back while I was battling my illness. I texted Sean. "We need to talk. Come to the hospital." And sent Lucy home despite her concerns. That evening, when Sean visited my room, I confronted him directly. "I'll ask you straight. Sean, you're having an affair, aren't you?" Sean looked surprised for a moment, but then became defiant. "So what if I am? Are you going to blame me? At least tell me why. Why did you have an affair? Why? Isn't it obvious? I don't love you anymore. In just a few weeks? Why all of a sudden?" In response to my question, he hurled the most cruel words imaginable at me. "Have you looked at yourself in the mirror? What? Your hair's fallen out, you've got bulging eyes, and you look unhealthy. Frankly, you look like a ghost. Where's the charm of a woman in you now? To say it like that. I don't need a bald and skinny woman like you. That's why. Satisfied? Saying this, my husband averted his eyes from me. His face was not that of the Sean I knew. Ignoring my silence, he took a paper out of his bag and thrust it in front of me. It was a divorce form. Are you serious? Of course, I am. Like I said, I don't have a shred of affection for you now. There's no value in being with you. But still. Listen, you have no charm as a woman anymore. It's a waste of life to stay with someone like you. Do you plan to keep me tied to this hospital room forever? For my sake, sign the divorce papers now. At that moment, the little hope that remained inside me shattered instantly. This man was no longer the Sean I knew. Staying married to him would be a waste of my life too. Convinced of this, I took the pen with trembling hands and scribbled my signature. After finishing, I thrust the divorce papers at him and said in an unusually deep voice, "Are you satisfied? We're strangers now. Don't ever show up in front of me again." Then Sean snorted mockingly. "Sean, who would want to see you again? Good luck with your sickness and treatment. You too, you know? You won't find happiness by doing such things. Like I need advice from a sick woman. Bye." With that, he left the hospital room. I lay back on the bed and stared blankly at the white ceiling. Ah, what an empty marriage it was. What was the life I had with him all about? Perhaps, marriage is ultimately just like this. While a hole formed in my heart, I also felt relieved that I no longer had to deal with such a despicable man. Thinking this made my heart feel a bit lighter. 2 years later, after enduring the hardships of treatment, and with Lucy's support, I was finally discharged from the hospital. Now, I live alone in an apartment and have restarted work, though for short hours. At Lucy's suggestion, I also started using social media. By sharing my changes on social media, I was able to connect with others who overcame cancer. I was finally getting my fulfilling life back. It was on one of those days that I received a call from my ex-husband. "Hello? Ashley. You're discharged, right? That's great. So what? And how did you find out? I saw your social post. You went out somewhere the other day, didn't you? It's creepy to sneak around your ex-wife's account." Stop it. Don't say that. I'm just concerned and called you. I'm fine, thanks. Goodbye. As I was about to hang up, he shouted over the phone. Wait. What? Where are you living now? Why should I tell you that? Actually, I need your help. What? After we divorced, I got caught cheating and the company fired me. I borrowed money to live, but now I'm deep in debt. Oh really? And? Now I'm about to be kicked out of the apartment we used to live in. So please, I'm begging you, help me. What about your affair partner? You have her, don't you? I broke up with her ages ago. As soon as I got fired, she stopped contacting me. Can you believe it? The worst, right? His attitude was as if to say, I'm not to blame, it's the fault of the company that fired me and the woman I cheated with. I was utterly disgusted from the bottom of my heart. This man hasn't grown at all. To him, I stated clearly, sorry, but I have no intention of being involved with you anymore. Why? We're ex-spouses, right? What are you talking about? We're divorced, which makes us complete strangers now, right? Don't joke with me. Don't you remember how much I supported you after you got sick? You should repay that favor. Repay that favor. Yeah, that's right. I took care of your mental health when you were bald. And now when I'm in trouble, you won't help. Was he forgetting that he cheated on me? His words were making me tremble with anger. Shut up. Who do you think you are after cheating during my illness? Don't make a fuss over a little affair. I did it because you were unbearable to look at. What? I don't want to hear that. While suffering from my illness, I was betrayed and pushed to rock bottom by you. Don't you see that? What the calm down. How can I be calm? How much more selfish can you be? How much more can you trample over someone's feelings? There's no way I'd help trash like you now. You should suffer even more. Wait. I was thinking we could get back together. What? As if I'd ever go back to someone who betrays so easily. I've made up my mind. I'm going to claim compensation. Compensation. He probably never imagined that a casual call would lead to a demand for compensation. He began to panic. Wait. Compensation. I just told you, I don't have money right now. That's not my problem. Hey Ashley. Shut up. Don't call me by my name so casually. I will never forget or forgive what you did. The betrayal during my pregnancy and illness will leave scars for life. I'll use every means to extract compensation and make you suffer even more. Wait. Help me. Ignoring whatever he was about to say, I hung up the phone. I blocked his number, not wanting to hear his voice ever again, and went straight to a lawyer's office. The evidence of his affair that Lucy had obtained a couple of years ago was still valid. Thanks to that, I could demand a substantial amount in compensation from both him and his affair partner. As a result, they ended up buried in massive debts. He was fired from his previous job and apparently struggles to find full-time work, so now is doing part-time jobs. He lives in fear of debt collectors, hiding every day. As for me, I continue to live a peaceful life alone. Recently, I increased my working hours so I can now spend money on my hobbies. My current joy is planning a trip to Miami with Lucy next month. I owe her a lot, so I'm paying for the entire trip. I'm planning to use the compensation money for it. Marriage isn't the only happiness. What's important is having friends who truly care about you. I plan to cherish the friend who helped me then for the rest of my life.
I gave birth to twins. I'm counting on a $12,000 congratulatory gift. Katie said this with a triumphant voice. I answered her loudly. Okay. I'll go with my husband, the real estate king worth $500 million. What? Katie's bewildered voice could be heard over the phone. Probably, her parents had told her my partner was some shabby common man. $500 million means what? Exactly what it sounds like. Katie seemed confused by my words. I couldn't help but chuckle. Then Katie retorted in surprise. That can't be, because... Well, let's talk about that face to face. Including what you did back then. Wait a sec, sis. Then, I'll come over tomorrow. I unilaterally said so and hung up the phone. Katie called several times, but I ignored all of them. I'm looking forward to tomorrow. Imagining Katie's regretful face, I laughed loudly. My name is Wendy Brown. I'm a 38-year-old housewife. I live with my husband, David. A housekeeper does the household chores, so I live a luxurious life every day. However, David is actually my second husband. I divorced my first husband 6 years ago. I met David later at a restaurant where I was working, and we remarried. My first husband, John, was someone my parents arranged for me to marry. My father liked John, the president of a company that did business with my parents' company. I had no say in the matter, and the marriage was decided the day after the matchmaking. Matchmaking was rare at the time. But as the eldest daughter expected to inherit the family business, it didn't seem so strange. Thus, our marriage was far from sweet. John, a president with an annual sales of $50 million, seldom came home and was often out playing. Even when he did come home, he would just make a disgusted face and go to his room. Fed up with such a life, I was suddenly called back to my parents' house. You should get a divorce. Huh? What's wrong all of a sudden? I was confused by my mother's sudden words. John's company was thriving. There was no benefit to divorcing now. Maybe my parents felt sorry for me? Holding that hope, I was shocked at what I saw next. Why are John and Katie? Katie is my sister. 10 years younger than me, my parents doted on her. As if they hardly cared about me. Katie entered the room arm in arm with John. Sis. I've taken a liking to John. So, I'll take him, okay? Take him? John isn't a toy. But, John likes me more, see? Right? Katie leaned on John as she said this. Then, John looked at me with a smirk. I felt a bad premonition the moment I saw his eyes. Younger girls are better than older ones, and Katie is prettier. I think Katie makes a better president's wife. That's Mom. I, who was about to be discarded for being older, sought help from my mother. I was raised strictly as the eldest daughter, but I believed my mother loved me. That's why I told you to get a divorce quickly. Katie wants him, so give him to her. You're the older sister, right? That's. I was dumbfounded. I knew my mother was lenient with Katie, but I thought she would be on my side at a time like this. Then my father spoke quietly. Just get the divorce over with quickly. From today on, Katie will be the successor of this house. Someone with a stain on their family register is a disgrace. Once you're divorced, get out of here immediately. Even you, Dad. With tears blurring my vision, I wrote the divorce papers. Then, after being told by my parents to pack only my personal belongings, I was quickly kicked out of the house. You're going to have a hard time from now on, sis. Consider this as severance pay. Katie is so kind. Be thankful. The two of them threw a bundle of money at me in mockery. Holding that bundle, I was at a loss for what to do next. What am I going to do now? Being a full-time housewife, I had no way to earn a living. After all, I had been trained as a bride but had never even had a part-time job. For starters, I decided to go to a hotel to think about what to do next. First, I decided to secure a place to live. I moved to the next town and went to a real estate agent. Thanks to my savings, I was able to rent a one-room apartment for living alone without any difficulty. I absolutely didn't want to use the compensation thrown at me by those two. With a determination to get revenge someday, I was motivated to start anew. After settling into the one-room apartment, the next step was to find a job. However, it was difficult to secure employment. Then, I received a call from Katie on my smartphone. Sis, did you not know that John has influence over this entire area? You won't get hired anywhere you apply. That's terrible. I was at a loss for what to do. As Katie said, I couldn't find a job. Without the ability to work, my savings would eventually run out. I decided to move to a town far away. The town I moved to was peaceful, with the scent of the sea breeze. I was hired by a small restaurant there and was able to work and live in. Hey, give me some beer. Right away. I want some snacks over here. Understood. Though I was not used to it, the customers were all kind to me as I served the food. Gradually, I began to do more and eventually became known as the face of the restaurant. Wendy's smile gives me the strength to face tomorrow. Wendy, aren't you going to get married?
Ah.
I'm not thinking about a marriage anymore. That's a waste, isn't it? I often received suggestions to remarry because I was still young, but I always dodged the question. I definitely didn't want to end up with someone like John again. Wendy, could I have a beer? David. Thanks for coming in, I'll get it for you. While everyone was suggesting remarriage, David, a regular customer, never made such teasing remarks. I found our conversations very comforting and began to look forward to his visits. David asked me out on a date about 3 years after I arrived in this town. Would you like to go see the ocean? What?
Ah.
Well, it's right in front of us. Seeing David flustered, who is usually calm, made me chuckle. I didn't mind his invitation. I decided to accept it. Our first date was nothing more than a walk on the sandy beach in front of the restaurant. But we talked about various things. David shared that he had lost his parents early and was living alone in this town he loved. I shared about my family and John. David cried on my behalf. I thought, maybe I should have cried like this. Watching the tears flow from David's eyes, I realized how much he empathized with me. We started going out more frequently and eventually began dating. I can't remember who said, "I love you" first, but our relationship naturally progressed. About a year later, David proposed to me. I'd like to share a grave with you. Is that a proposal? That's the idea. Despite David's lack of confidence, I smiled warmly and accepted his proposal. We got married. Although I had no intention of informing my parents or sister, David suggested we at least inform my parents. After 4 years, I contacted them and returned home. Oh, you're alive. Remarriage? Go ahead, but we won't be providing any assistance. If you're remarrying such a poor man, don't ever cross our threshold again. Anger colored my face red in front of David. Indeed, David doesn't care for luxury. Yet he wore a high-brand suit today. I didn't want any further relationship with parents who could say such things. I was about to speak out in anger when David intervened. Then, we'll be taking your daughter with us. We won't contact you in the future, nor will we ask for any assistance. David. My parents were surprised by David's straightforward attitude. But they quickly became angry at the perceived slight. David handled their anger with a smile, took my hand, and we left my family home. I didn't expect it to be that bad. I'm sorry for making you go through this. No, don't worry about it. It's actually a bit of a relief. I smiled at David, who seemed relieved by my reaction. We then returned to our new home. After a while, we started receiving an increased number of calls from unknown numbers. I ignored all of them and consulted David. Let's ignore them. But it's creepy, so let's change our number tomorrow. Yes, thank you. David promptly arranged for us to change our phone number the next morning. After that, the anonymous calls stopped. I was relieved, but soon after, we started receiving calls from unknown numbers again. Hello. The caller would hang up without saying anything. Feeling uneasy, I consulted David again. He advised me to ignore all calls from unknown numbers, so I did. Eventually, the calls stopped, and I gradually forgot about the whole ordeal. One day, I received a call from my estranged family home. I had forgotten to delete their number from my phone book, so I reluctantly answered the call. To my surprise, it wasn't my mother on the line but Katie. Hello, sis. How are you? Katie. Don't sound so scary. It's natural that my voice betrayed my feelings since she's the last person I ever wanted to talk to. The first thing I did was to confirm the question that popped into my mind. How did you get my number? It was easy to find. After all, I have money. Her tone confirmed to me that Katie hadn't changed at all. I was about to hang up when Katie cheerfully started talking. I gave birth to twins. I'm expecting a gift of $12,000. Katie said this with a triumphant voice. I loudly responded to her. Okay. I'll come with my husband, the real estate tycoon worth $500 million. What? I could hear Katie's incredulous voice over the phone. Presumably, my parents had told her that my husband was some unremarkable common man. Wah, $500 million, what do you mean? Exactly what I said. Katie seemed confused by my words. I couldn't help but chuckle. Then, Katie suddenly retorted. That's impossible, because… Well, we'll discuss everything in person, including your actions at that time. Wait, just a minute, sis. Then, I'll see you tomorrow. I unilaterally ended the call. Katie tried calling several times after that, but I ignored all her calls. I'm looking forward to tomorrow. I waited for David to come home and explained the situation to him. David smiled and made a suggestion. I'll go in my usual attire. I nodded in agreement. I also decided to wear my regular clothes and return to my parents' house. I'm home. Oh, you're back. Did you bring your husband? What? Katie came running to the entrance with a smile, but she was shocked by our attire. No wonder, since our clothes were bought from a no-brand store for common folk, with each piece costing around $20. What's with those shabby clothes? Aren't you a real estate king? I responded with a smile to Katie's words. Then, Katie misinterpreted and gave me a mocking look. So it was a lie after all. You can't hide it even if you try to show off. Oh, it's not a lie. I said this and pointed to my smartphone screen. It displayed David's name and photo. Katie stared at it intently before exclaiming, Brown, as in that major real estate group. The president. No way. It's not a lie. Katie glared at me resentfully and then pointed at our clothes, berating us. Then why are you wearing such shabby clothes? I responded with a mocking expression. Well, we have to match the management situation of the house, don't we? Huh? Are you saying our house is in decline? No, I judged this level of etiquette to be appropriate. David and I usually wear proper visiting clothes or formal attire when visiting someone's home. We have never insulted anyone by wearing t-shirts and jeans. That's why we deliberately chose this attire for this occasion. There were two reasons for this choice. First, to mislead Katie and dampen her spirits, which was a success judging by her frustrated expression. And second, I started walking towards the living room, followed by David, with Katie trailing behind us. Having someone as reassuring as David by my side, I doubt there's anyone else like him. I energetically opened the living room door. You're being noisy. Be more graceful like Katie when you open the door. What's with that cheap look? Really, I'm disappointed in you. As soon as the door opened, my parents started criticizing. I couldn't help but laugh. Katie was saying something about marrying a rich man. But it seems it was just Wendy's pretense. Right. That's all you can afford to wear, after all. I wish you wouldn't cross our threshold in such tacky clothes. As my parents freely expressed their disdain, I smiled and retorted. Maybe it's judging people by their clothes that's causing your business to fail? What? My parents were taken aback by my comment, while Katie looked bewildered. I decided to explain politely. I heard you were in the red last year? And this term is looking shaky too, isn't it? That's none of your business. I'd like to say it doesn't concern me, but unfortunately, we're still related by the family register. My father glared at me resentfully. His expression reminded me so much of Katie. It dawned on me that while I took after our mother, Katie resembled our father. In truth, my father's company has been on a decline since John married Katie. After receiving Katie's call, I had David check, and far from recovering. Their performance was worsening. The second reason we wore low-cost clothing was this. We wanted to let our nearly bankrupt parents underestimate us. So when they found out about their impending bankruptcy, the shock would be greater. As my parents glared at me, I sighed and continued. I plan to renounce any inheritance when the time comes. You were planning to inherit. Money grubber. All of Mom and Dad's money is mine. Katie, who had been silent, interrupted my speech and snapped. It seemed she didn't understand what I had said. Although it would be easy to explain, honestly, it felt too bothersome. However, the conversation couldn't progress without clarification. Just then, David succinctly explained on my behalf. Your parents' company is on the verge of bankruptcy. What? Katie looked at our parents in shock, who awkwardly looked away. Then, Katie did something unexpected. She clung to David's arm. So David, could you cover for them? In return, you can do whatever you want with me, just kidding. Despite Katie's lighthearted words, tension filled the air between David and me. David sighed deeply, forcibly removed Katie's arm, and spoke up. Could you not do that? It's repulsive. Repulsive. Me? Yes. It's repulsive. David reiterated firmly. Katie, seemingly shocked, staggered away from David and glared at him with teary eyes. How dare you say such rude things to me? I'm prettier than that plain sister of mine. Huh? That's impossible. Wendy is slimmer, her skin is clearer, and her features are more refined. Above all, her heart is much purer. David began listing my good qualities, my cooking skills, intellect, compassion, and honesty. It made me sound like a perfect person, which was somewhat embarrassing. I tried to stop David by lightly tugging on his sleeve twice. Then, David turned to me with a warm smile. This modesty is another charm you have that's different from hers. Excuse me. Katie stamped her feet in frustration. Katie had gained significantly more weight since the last time I saw her. She must have put on at least 45 pounds. Her once praised beautiful face was now marred with acne and blemishes. Far from the beauty she was known as. It seemed like a combination of parental spoiling and a decrease in metabolism due to age had caused her to gain weight. Typical of the self-indulgent Katie. However, our parents started defending her. Katie just got a bit rounder from giving birth. She'll get back to her shape in no time. No, this looks more like the result of an unhealthy lifestyle. You stay out of it. My mother yelled at me, her face turning red. The mother I once thought was absolute now seemed far from intimidating. By the way, there's a possibility that the sons born are not John's. Hey. Is that true? As I spoke, John's voice came from behind. Turning around, I saw John holding 2 babies.
Ah.
John. Long time no see. Never mind that. What do you mean? John confronted me with a fierce look, but David intervened and started explaining on my behalf. I heard about John from Wendy. And we had some acquaintances look into it before coming here. I didn't expect to catch the tale so quickly. David took out his smartphone, showing a photo of a man and woman entering a hotel hand in hand. Upon seeing it, John exclaimed. You were still seeing that guy. And so, John, without being asked, suddenly started talking about another man. Right after we got married, she cheated on me with that guy in the photo. She said it was just once, so I forgave her. John said this, glaring at Katie. Then, Katie glared back at John and retorted. Forgave me? After you became a subsidiary of our company, you have some nerve. What? You insisted it was for the best, didn't you? Katie and John were blaming each other, engaging in an ugly argument. It seems that right after they got married, John's company came under my father's company's umbrella. Soon after, their business went downhill. If I knew it would be like this, I would have never divorced Wendy. Excuse me. What are you saying? You think my sister is better than me? Impossible. John raised his voice at Katie, who was hysterically screaming. Of course. Wendy never blamed me for cheating, and I was free to do as I liked. If there were kids with Wendy, she would take care of them, so I didn't need to. After saying that, John suddenly seemed to realize something. I felt a bad premonition from his expression. That's right. Wendy. Let's remarry.
Ah.
It must have been destiny for us to end up this way. John, delighting in his realization, kneeled in front of me. I stepped back in disgust. Then, David stepped between John and me. Wendy is my wife. There's no chance of her remarrying you. Huh? Move aside, man. John yelled at David irritably. I answered John from behind David. I could never remarry you. I would never want your children. Oh, right, you couldn't have children anyway. But still, impossible. What? What do you mean I can't have children? John looked at us dumbfounded. My parents and Katie had the same expression. I decided to explain to them. Remember when I went to the gynecologist while we were still married? I had tests done. Don't you remember?
Ah.
I remember being dragged to the gynecologist. But it was your fault, wasn't it? John seemed to desperately want to believe it was my fault, repeatedly insisting his health was fine. I confronted John with the truth after 6 years. The one who can't have children is you, John. Lies, lies. Then whose kids are these? They're mine, right? Unfortunately, they're not your children. John slumped down upon hearing this. A maid hurriedly took the babies from John's hands. Katie was gaping in the background. So, Katie. It seems they're not John's kids. Sis, why didn't you tell me he was defective? If you had told me properly, by now. Katie began to shift the blame masterfully. I listened silently until she calmed down, then smiled and said, You've made your bed, now lie in it. What? Then give me David. David himself already said no. Then give me money. Family should help each other out. You're one to talk. I was irritated by Katie's words. There was no such thing as mutual assistance in our family. In times of hardship and distress, instead of support, I only received cold treatment. Unfortunately, I'm not part of your family. You are. Come on, sis. Don't be sulky. Katie's words were irritating, but responding with tit for tat would get us nowhere. I took a deep breath. Just as I was about to retort, my mother spoke first. Wendy, I'm sorry for everything. But we're really in trouble. If you really have money, won't you help us? That's right. As Katie said, family should help each other. Let's put everything behind us, shall we? I was utterly astonished by what they were saying. After all, forgiveness is something for the wrong to offer, not for the wrongdoers to request. It was useless to expect them to reflect. I decided to discard the little affection for my family that I had left and gave them a cold look. Noticing my gaze, the three of them flinched but soon forced a creepy smile. I apologize for everything, okay? That's right, that's right. We're making amends here, so you should compromise a little. Their attitude showed no remorse, prompting me to sigh. Then, with a smile only on my lips, I questioned my mother. Hey, why do I have to go to such lengths for a half-sister and biological parents who oppressed me? Half-sister? What are you talking about? Katie is my child. Even after saying so much, my father seemed clueless, which was frustrating. But it seemed like my mother understood what I meant. Her face turned pale. What on earth are you talking about, child? It's okay, if you want to pretend. But I saw you cheating with another man when I was younger. Yes, I had seen my mother bringing a man into our house back when I was living there. It was not long after they got married. Both Father and John were away on business trips, and Katie was on a trip with friends. It was just my mother and me at home. When I came back from running errands my mother had asked me to do, I found a pair of men's shoes I didn't recognize. At first, I thought we had a visitor and went to the living room, but no one was there. Then, to my surprise, I heard voices coming from the bedroom. I wanted to cover my ears. But then, I heard something that made my eyes widen. He doesn't know that Katie isn't his child. Katie isn't Dad's child. I had to cover my mouth with both hands to stop myself from screaming. I wanted to hear more, but sensing they were about to come out of the bedroom, I quickly left the house to kill time until the man left and then returned home. Curious about that incident, I did some digging right after I got married to David. It turned out the man was Mr. Wagner, an old friend of my father's, and the affair was ongoing. So, you threw me out because Katie, who is the child of your affair, wanted John. What do you mean? My mother, turning pale, shook her head in denial. Even my father, finally catching on, turned red with anger and glared at her. I decided to give my father the name of the man my mother had an affair with as a parting gift. Mom's affair partner is Mr. Wagner. Wagner. She had an affair with him. Even now. Father stood there, stunned. Mr. Wagner, being one of my father's closest friends, meant the betrayal hit him harder than most. However, I felt no sympathy for him in that situation. I'm not Dad's child. Katie was also stunned, leaving no one to lash out at me. Are we done here? I've decided to renounce any inheritance. So do as you please from here on out. But in return, don't ask for my help. I want nothing to do with you from now on. Though my voice quivered a bit towards the end, I managed to say everything I wanted to. All right, time to go. I gave David a look, feeling refreshed. Just before leaving the room, I turned around and took an envelope out of my bag. Oh right, this is the compensation you threw at me. I haven't used it, so it's still the same amount. Consider this a return gift for the birth celebration. It's a bit more than you asked for, but think of it as severance money. I said this and placed the envelope in front of Katie. Katie was so shocked she didn't move. We left the four of them behind and exited my family home. Afterwards, my parents didn't divorce, but their relationship turned icy. My mother's movements were severely restricted, and her affair with Mr. Wagner was forcibly ended. My father stepped down from his CEO position and tried to live on his pension. But due to his long-standing spending habits, it didn't work out, and he ended up selling the house. When I passed by my former home recently, it was now an empty lot, which somewhat lifted my spirits. Apparently, they now live in a rented apartment. And both my parents have had to start working to afford the rent. My mother has never worked before, so she has been hopping from job to job. Katie and John ended up divorcing. Naturally, Katie took custody of the children. However, having never worked, Katie struggled to support 2 children and ended up imposing herself on her affair partner, who was already married and in the midst of his own domestic crisis. Feeling half related, I could sympathize, but remembering all she had done, a part of me thought she got what she deserved. John attempted to revive his company post-divorce, but was thwarted by his tarnished reputation, leading to a cessation of business deals, stock crashes, and eventual bankruptcy. Moreover, after being swindled in a marriage scam through a dating app, and losing the compensation Katie paid, along with accruing debts from dubious sources, he now works in construction daily to repay his debts. David received a call from him begging for money but firmly refused, citing their lack of relation. Given his persistent demands for a divorce from me, there was no room for sympathy. As for me, I'm currently expecting our first child. David was overjoyed upon hearing the news and has already started designing a child-first home, even though it's a bit premature. He's also begun selecting a babysitter, which made me laugh at his eagerness. We're having a boy. Both of us being estranged from our families, the kindness of our townspeople, who have already offered their help, ensures our son will be born into a loving community. How are you feeling today, Wendy? I'm feeling quite well today. That's great. Hope you have a healthy baby. Yes, thank you. I receive such warm wishes during my walks. It makes me genuinely happy, and I'm grateful to have moved here. Wendy. I couldn't decide between blue or green for the bedding, so I bought both. You're getting ahead of yourself. Despite admonishing David for his daily purchases, I'm knitting baby socks, planning to finish a week before the due date. Oh, he kicked. Really? Daddy's here. Reacting to my words, David talks to my belly, and right then, the baby kicks again. He responded. Daddy loves you too. Oh, David. I can't help but find him adorable, even if I'm a bit amused. Immersed in this happiness, I continue knitting. I knew it. I thought he had a learning disability. So, a child of a useless mother is useless, huh? Don't say such things in front of the child. It's just the truth. Today was the day Aaron's test results would be known. He was diagnosed with a learning disability. But that doesn't mean he deserves to be called useless. You are useless. He actually said that to Aaron. That's unforgivable. I'm okay, but apologize. What? No way. Involuntarily, my fist clenched with anger. Without a word of apology, my husband left. He didn't come back the next day. Then, he called. I'll leave the defective product to you. I'm going to make a new child. What? And so, my husband abandoned Aaron and me. 3 years later. What are you doing? I happened to encounter my husband, who had become paraplegic. Actually, my name is Jenny Walters, and I turned 45 this year. I started working at a local cosmetics factory right after graduating from high school. I lost both my parents to illness right before graduating from high school, so I had to give up on further education. At that time, I was barely living, unable to think about anything other than myself. Haven't you been pushing yourself too hard recently? Yes. Why don't you take a break? Thank you both. But I'm okay. Thankfully, I wasn't lonely thanks to my grandparents. And I had a dream of saving money to become a nurse. That was triggered when my parents were hospitalized. The care provided by the nurses left a lasting impression on me. By my 25th birthday, I had saved enough money to take the first step towards my goal. So, you've worked hard to get here. But the real challenge starts now. We will always support you, Jenny. Then, I graduated from nursing school as valedictorian and passed the national examination. I secured a job at a local university hospital. Later, I would have a fateful encounter. I was assigned to a male patient who was hospitalized with a fracture. How are you feeling, Mr. Hansen? Much better. I still can't walk on my own, though. You shouldn't push yourself yet. Okay. This man, Mr. Hansen, was the same age as me and was born in the next town over. He was someone who treated everyone equally, quickly becoming friends with the other patients in the same room. And then, 2 weeks after being hospitalized. Yes? What is it? Once my leg is healed, would you go out with me? I actually fell in love with you at first sight. What? Despite other patients being around, I raised my voice in shock. Though I was surprised, deep down, I was very happy. The reason being, just last month, a senior nurse at this hospital happily married one of the patients. I wondered if such things really happened, but I was a bit envious of such manga-like developments. So, what do you think? Let me think about it for a bit. Understood. After that, I spent days agonizing over how to respond. 3 days later. About what you asked the other day. Yes? Please take care of me. I might have been a bit carried away at that moment. However, observing his actions on a regular basis, I felt he was a very sincere and wonderful man. That's great. Now I'll have even more motivation for my rehabilitation. His recovery thereafter was astonishing. And he was discharged from the hospital much sooner than the expected additional month. Then came the day of our promised date. We met up in front of the station and initially went to a cafe. We were both tentatively trying to find topics to talk about. How should I call you? Whatever you like. My first name is Jenny. Then, Jenny it is. And what should I call you? I'd be happy if you called me Ben. That day, we talked about various things at the cafe and then parted ways. After that, we went on several dates, and we started dating. The last time I had a boyfriend was when I was in high school. So I had no experience with adult relationships. That I could be so at ease, even in such circumstances, was thanks to him. One day, about a year after we started dating, while I was working as usual, an emergency patient was brought in. What? Why are the two of you here? The patients turned out to be my grandparents. Upon further inquiry, I learned that they were hit by a drunk driver while walking on the sidewalk. All I could do was pray that they would be okay. After a long emergency surgery, sitting in front of the operating room, the attending doctor approached me. The moment I saw his face, I understood everything. I don't remember much after that. When I came to, there lay the bodies of my grandparents. What should I do now? I was plunged into the depths of despair. With the death of my only relatives, I was left all alone. Even so, Ben was there, desperately supporting me. Let's get married. Married? You might think it's too soon since your family just passed away. But there's no better time than now. His expression was more serious than ever before. I will become your family. Hearing those words, tears naturally started flowing from my eyes. Thank you. He didn't say anything more and just held me until I stopped crying. Then, we quickly started preparing for the wedding. Since I had no relatives, we only greeted his parents. Despite it being our first meeting, my in-laws accepted me right away. I thought, I have a new family now. I look forward to our future together. Me too. Our life in our new home was going smoothly. 6 months later, I found out I was pregnant. I safely gave birth to our son, Aaron. I thought, I have a new family again. I'll do everything I can to protect this child so he doesn't have to go through what I did. However, problems started to arise. As Aaron began to speak, I noticed something was off. There was nothing wrong with his speech per se. But he seemed not to listen to us, lost in his own world. This became more apparent after he started going to kindergarten. Despite this, I patiently interacted with Aaron, but why doesn't Aaron ever listen? My husband sighed heavily. You don't have to say it like that. Say it like that? If I don't speak clearly, it won't get through. A little more gently. Aaron will get scared. Then, Jenny, you take care of Aaron. What's that supposed to mean? After that, my husband stopped interacting with Aaron altogether. He seemed like a child who had lost interest in a toy. I couldn't believe such a man was a father. Above all, Aaron was the biggest victim. Being ignored by his father and scolded whenever he spoke, his words became increasingly scarce. I'll always be on your side, Aaron. Okay. It was a relief that he still spoke to me in his own words. However, my husband's behavior was spiraling. Hey, where are you now? What? I'm at work. That can't be. I immediately knew it was a lie. His company prohibits overtime except in emergencies. And it was now past 10 p.m. Furthermore, it sounded like he was in a crowded place from the phone call. I'm busy, gonna hang up now. Wait. We're not done talking? I thought, who's really unable to have a proper conversation here? The call was abruptly ended. Even when he came back and I tried to continue the conversation, he was full of excuses about being tired or having an early start tomorrow. He had plenty to say about our son, but in the end, he was the one who wouldn't listen. Acting more like a child than anyone. 2 days later, I had been avoiding night shifts since Aaron was born, but suddenly, I was needed due to a staff shortage. Sorry, but I have to do a night shift. Please take care of Aaron. Saying anything more would surely upset him. So I suppressed my emotions and went to work, trying not to make a fuss. The chief nurse, it's quite peaceful today. You're still 30 minutes early, but I know you're worried about your child. You can leave now if you want. But what if something happens in those 30 minutes? It's okay. Look, the morning staff came in a bit early today. Good morning. I'm sorry. Thank you so much. Thanks to the chief nurse's arrangement, I was able to go home earlier than usual. The door was locked, but upon closer inspection, only my husband's shoes were missing. Sighing, I headed to the living room and found Aaron curled up on the sofa. What are you doing here? I'm hungry. Where's Dad? Aaron shook his head. My husband had left the previous night without feeding him and had not returned since. I immediately prepared some food and let him eat. He was so hungry he ate voraciously. Take your time eating. It's really delicious. I thought, how could he neglect him to this extent? What is he thinking? Months passed, and a kindergarten teacher made a suggestion. They suspected Aaron might have a developmental disorder and recommended we get him tested. If nothing is wrong, that's fine, but if there's something, it's better to know early. You're right. Thank you for the suggestion. I knew about developmental disorders but hadn't considered it a possibility. I decided to discuss it with my husband immediately. What? So he's a defective product? What do you mean? Aaron is not an object. Just take him to get tested, all right? Eventually, I found a hospital willing to test him and took Aaron there alone. I knew it. I had a feeling. So, a child of a useless mother is useless, huh? Don't say such things in front of the child. It's just the truth. Today was the day to find out Aaron's test results. He was diagnosed with a learning disability. But that doesn't mean he deserves to be called useless. You are useless. He actually said that to Aaron. That's unforgivable. I'm okay, but apologize. What? No way. Involuntarily, my fist clenched with anger. Without a word of apology, my husband left. He didn't return the next day. Then, he called. I'll leave the defective product with you. I'm going to make a new child. What? Where are you now? Like I'd tell you. And so, my husband abandoned Aaron and me. From then on, our lives became difficult. We had no one to rely on. I hesitated about going to my in-laws to explain the situation. Honestly, I was afraid. Afraid they might say something heartless like my husband. However, my fears were pleasantly disproven. That must have been tough. To leave such a good wife and child. We're not working anymore, so if anything happens to Aaron, you can always rely on us. Yes, yes. Having our grandson around makes us very happy. Thank you. It felt like they truly accepted us. Relying on my in-laws' offer, they started taking care of Aaron while I was at work. Thanks to their help, I no longer felt guilty about going to work. I gradually increased my night shifts, proving that I could survive without my husband. As this new life continued, my son started elementary school. On our way home from the entrance ceremony, we unexpectedly ran into someone. What are you doing here? There, surprisingly, was my husband, sitting in a wheelchair. Actually, he started talking about the 3 years since he had abandoned Aaron and me. He had been living with an affair partner he had known before leaving home. A divorced older woman with children. He had managed without any issues for about a year. The situation changed dramatically last year. After causing a car accident, my husband became paraplegic. The affair partner and her child were in the car with him, but he was the only one seriously injured. I thought, is this karma? However, I didn't understand why he was here. So, why are you here? Well. Then, a woman and her daughter came running towards us. Dad. You were here? You disappeared again. Let's go home.
Ah.
Okay. And who is this?
Uh.
I'm an old high school classmate of Ben's. Is that so? Can you go ahead without me? What? Are you okay, on your own? I can make it back from here on my own. Okay? See you later then. She nodded at me and left with the girl, who was wearing a shiny new backpack. I never thought she'd be Aaron's classmate.
Yeah.
That's how it is. He gave a wry smile. It's not funny. You didn't come to your own son's entrance ceremony. Why bother with someone else's child? That's because. Well, it's better if you hadn't come. It's because Aaron has a disability. I was reminded once again of what a terrible person he is. You think it's my fault? For all you know, you could be the reason. Well, we can't be sure, can we? Aaron tugged at my sleeve, looking eager to leave. It seemed I had talked too much. Well, good luck. How are you getting by now? I don't see why I need to answer that. I can't even get through to my parents on the phone. Maybe you should go see them next time? Leaving that suggestion behind, she headed to her in-laws. Upon sharing the story of her unexpected encounter with her husband, her in-laws proposed something. I thought, this could be interesting. The in-laws contacted their son after several years. And now, my husband was scheduled to visit here tomorrow. He's coming. And he's bringing his current partner too. I see. Then. I couldn't wait. I wondered what their reaction would be upon seeing our current situation. The next afternoon, my husband arrived. "What brings you here now?" "Well, and who is this?" "We're living together now." "Isn't that strange?" "What?" It seemed he didn't understand. "Then let me explain." "Why are you here?" "Currently, they're providing us with a lot of support." Unable to contain herself, the woman beside him spoke up. "Explain what you mean." I thought, just as I suspected. "I don't know what he's told you. But you're forgetting something important, aren't you?" "Huh? I can't believe an adult doesn't understand this." "Hey. What does that mean?" "I don't understand." Annoyed, I silenced the affair partner's questioning. "We're having an important conversation. So could you please be quiet for a moment?" "First of all, who are you?" "Who am I?" "I'm Ben's wife." "What? Right?" My husband remained silent. "Because we're not divorced yet." I didn't know he had a wife. "Didn't you find that odd?" He always dodged the topic whenever I mentioned marriage. "So, you knew all along that you couldn't marry him as things stood. Anyway, I suppose we should ask for compensation from both of you." I was deceived. "But you were involved in an affair while I was still around, weren't you?" The affair had been ongoing even before my husband left. "Right?" "Well,
Yeah.
pretending you didn't know won't work, will it?" "Well, let's leave that to the court to decide." "Please, do something." Then, my father-in-law added his comment. "In any case, you need to leave this house immediately. And never come back." "What does Mom say?" "The same." "Should I bring her here?" "She's even angrier than I am." What is this all about? Led by the affair partner, my husband left. Then, there was only one thing for me to do. I immediately hired a lawyer to handle the divorce and compensation proceedings. I demanded $30,000 from my husband and $15,000 from the affair partner. Though the affair partner was deceived, she knew my husband was married. Therefore, she had to take some responsibility. Just when I thought everything had concluded, there was a continuation. "Really? Is that what happened?" "That's what I heard." I thought they would split up after this lesson, but that wasn't the case. Their relationship apparently deepened through this ordeal. However, the hardest part, especially with him being paraplegic, is yet to come. Unable to work properly. I wonder how much hardship they will face in the future. I thought, well, it's none of my concern anymore. The compensation I demanded was eventually paid in full, though reluctantly. However, it seems that the two of them eventually split up. After paying the compensation, they used up all their savings. And with my ex-husband unable to work adequately, the affair partner became the breadwinner. It was foreseeable that she would become overburdened with work. Household chores, childcare, and caregiving. Perhaps it's fair to say that the end of money marks the end of a relationship. I heard through the grapevine that accumulated frustrations exploded. And she kicked out my ex-husband. I have no idea where he ended up. Aaron and I continued to maintain a good relationship with my in-laws. Aaron has developmental disabilities, but he's making steady progress. No matter what happens, I'll protect this child.
That settles it. Finally, I can live a happy, wealthy life with Stefan. You better get used to living off cheap instant noodles or something. You poor thing. Huh? Poor? What do you mean, Christina? Because if you break up, Aileen the housewife will be left with nothing, right? Then she'll be living off of cheap instant noodles. Why would Aileen have nothing? I'm the one who's a stay-at-home husband, you know. What? What do you mean? My name is Aileen, a 37-year-old business owner. Stefan and I have been married for about half a year. We met through a dating app. I had been too focused on my work and hadn't been involved in any romantic relationships. I hadn't had a boyfriend since my student days. As an employee, I was devoted to my work, and then I became obsessed with starting my own business and growing it. Before I knew it, I had reached this age. I finally wanted to get married, so a friend introduced me to a dating app. That's where I got to know Stephen through messaging. He had a refreshing atmosphere and was very calming to talk to. He had a domestic side and was very good at cooking. Just knowing he was at home cooking made me feel at ease. Realizing this, I proposed to him. He was surprised by the unexpected proposal, but he seemed to like me as well and accepted. And so we suddenly decided to get married. I think our married life is going well. My husband quit his job to become a stay-at-home husband and supported me. His cooking was delicious and I looked forward to coming home every day. On our days off, we would watch movies together and spend a relaxed time. We were living happily. But then, a threat to our happiness appeared one day. It was a woman named Christina, a childhood friend of my husband's. It seems Christina had recently divorced and had started contacting my husband. She kept asking him out for drinks or dates, so my husband decided to invite her over for dinner at our house, including me. I was a bit shocked by his decision, but I appreciated that he didn't meet her secretly behind my back. But after meeting her in person, my unease grew. She was very excited when he came to our house. Wow, what an amazing house! Stephen, do you live here? You're a success. No, this is all thanks to Eileen. You haven't changed, still so humble. I'm proud to see my childhood friend doing so well. Christina suddenly clung to my husband's arm. I was startled and froze. What are you doing? Sorry. It's just a habit from old times. We've always been close and used to do physical contact like this. Christina laughed saying this, but she seemed to harbor some hostility towards me. I thought she was dangerous, and after that, Christina frequently visited our house. I'm here to see Stephen. What's wrong with a childhood friend wanting to meet? Even if they're childhood friends, it's strange to visit so often if they're of the opposite gender. But Christina kept coming over. Moreover, she would come when I was not at home. I asked my husband to stop Christina from coming, but he said Christina was healing from her divorce by talking to him. So he couldn't refuse the request of Christina, his childhood friend. My frustration grew. It was like my kind husband to act for Christina's sake, but still, I was worried because they were of the opposite gender and anything could happen. And one day, my fears came true. When I returned from work, my husband and Christina were waiting for me. Normally, Christina would hurry home when I returned, but that day she stayed, saying she had something to tell me. What's going on? Aileen, I want a divorce. What? We ended up hooking up? What? Christina smiled smugly. It seems the two of them had an affair. So you crossed the line. I'm sorry, Aileen. I can't leave her alone. I understand. I can't continue our marriage either. I definitely can't stay with someone who had an affair. My husband has a kind nature, which led him to have a relationship with his childhood friend. But it was all her strategy. I understand this very well. Christina is smugly wrapping her arms around my husband, saying, "Sorry, I ended up stealing your husband." But really, it should be me who ends up with Stephen. The annoying parasite should just go away. Parasite? She's clearly misunderstanding something, but I choose not to correct her. Right, I need some time to think, so I'll stay at a hotel. But we will definitely discuss the division of property and compensation. Let's talk with a lawyer later. Christina made a displeased face upon hearing this, but my husband agreed, so she reluctantly consented. I packed the essentials into a suitcase and left the house. I stayed in a luxury hotel suite for the first time in a while, taking the time to heal physically and mentally. While I was relaxing in the bath, my phone rang. Ignoring it, thinking who it could be, phone kept ringing even after I got out of the bath. The caller was my mother-in-law. Sighing, I looked at the screen, wondering what she wanted. Just as I felt healed staying in the suit, my mood sank again. The phone didn't stop ringing, so I reluctantly answered. "Hello?" "Ah, finally you answered. I heard you finally got dumped by Steven." Dumped? It's not like I was dumped. No need to pretend to be strong. Suddenly plunging into poverty must be hard, huh? But it's all your own doing. People like you are suited for living off cheap instant noodles. What is she even talking about? Noodles? Instant noodles are delicious, aren't they? Huh. Well, if you think so, that's good for you. I could never stand it. What do you want calling me? What do you mean I called to make fun of you? Obviously. Can I hang up now? What are you saying? No, you can't. I'm also calling to give you advice. Advice? Yes, never bother us again. Christina and Stephen are a perfect couple, so we can't let someone like you interfere. Wait, are you in on this too? In on what? Are you the reason Christina kept coming over and approaching Stephen? Who knows? All I said was that Stephen would be happier marrying Christina. I didn't do anything more than that. It was clearly a plan by Christina and my mother-in-law, and my husband fell for it completely. Well, it's also his fault for being deceived. At least, now I know my mother-in-law was involved. I thought she was a terrible person, and it turns out I was right. Don't worry, I won't interfere with Christina and the rest. Once we settle the compensation and everything, we'll never see each other again. You promise? I recorded it, you know? Yes, that's fine with me. What are you laughing at? You don't seem to understand your position. Dumped by Stephen and heading straight to poverty. Huh. Tired of dealing with her, I hung up the phone and blocked her number. I didn't want to waste my time in the suit. I decided to extend my stay for one more night to truly relax. Just in case, I also blocked my husband's number. This prevented any more troublesome calls, allowing me to relax properly. I was able to return to work in a relaxed state and left all divorce matters to my lawyer. A week later, a meeting about the divorce with my husband was held with lawyers present. Christina had forcibly come along, seemingly to watch out for any strange demands from me. Let's begin the discussion. Eileen's demands include property division and compensation. The breakdown of the property division is as follows, and the compensation will be this amount. When the lawyer handed over the documents, Christina snatched them. Wait a minute, you're taking 30% off the assets for the property division? Don't joke around. I won't give you that much. What? I think this is fair for a married couple. Yeah, I think so too. Really? Stephen? You're too kind. She's even demanding compensation from us. And $30,000 each is ridiculous, don't you think? I believe that's quite reasonable, considering the circumstances. Well, yeah. Stephen, are you really okay with being under her thumb like this? It's not about being under her thumb. I've caused Eileen a lot of trouble, so I have to take responsibility. I'll pay Christina's part of the compensation as well. Well, if you say so. Christina seemed dissatisfied but eventually appeared to accept the situation. This concludes our discussion. Finally, now I can live a happy, wealthy life with Stephen. You better enjoy your cheap instant noodles. Poor thing. Huh? Poor? Christina, what do you mean? Well, once you split with Eileen, she'll be left with nothing, right? She'll be living on cheap noodles. Why would Eileen be left with nothing? I'm the one who's a stay-at-home husband, remember? What? What do you mean? I thought Stephen was a company prison living in that high-rise condo. What are you talking about? Eileen is the president, not me. I'm the stay-at-home spouse, and if anyone's going to struggle financially, it's us. What? That's insane. But your mother said Stephen was an elite with a high income. My mom? She's been mistaken about that for a while. But Eileen has explained it to her countless times, right? Yes, and every time I did, she'd accuse me of lying, saying I'm just a housewife. Your mother holds quite outdated views, doesn't she? She doesn't believe women can be successful in business. So I figured we'd never see eye to eye. Yeah, my mom's views are pretty old-fashioned. Wait, so Eileen is really the high-rise condo's owner? Yes, that's correct. Who are you exactly? I'm the president of a company called Ross. What? The famous cosmetics company? Oh, you're familiar with it? That's nice to hear. Well, yeah, it's frequently recommended in magazines and by influencers. I'm so glad all the hard work paid off. Being the president of that company means your annual revenue must be insane. Well, maybe around $200 million? $200 million? I can't even imagine that. I suppose you wouldn't. But more importantly, that high-rise condo is registered in my name, so Stephen will have to move out. What? Wait a minute. What about the property division? Isn't that high-rise condo considered marital property? Unfortunately for you, I bought that condo when I was single, so it's entirely mine. Besides, I've been the one covering our living expenses with Stephen taking care of the household duties. So, the property division and compensation will proceed as we discussed earlier. I don't want to accept that. I thought I was going to become rich. Christina, you have to give up on that idea, but I promise to take responsibility and stay by your side. Why did it have to turn out like this? Christina was visibly upset, obviously having hoped to marry into wealth. Her disappointment must be significant, given her intentions. But since her actions contributed to the breakdown of our marriage, I have no sympathy for her. In fact, she got what she deserved. After our discussion, Stephen and I signed the divorce papers and officially ended our marriage. Thank you for everything up to now. Take care of yourself. Stephen wasn't a bad person, but I couldn't forgive the infidelity. We had to go our separate ways. A month later, Christina unexpectedly showed up at my company. She was causing a scene at the reception, demanding to see the president. To avoid further disturbance, I had her brought to my office. Christina looked worn out, with unkempt hair, dirty clothes, and barely any makeup, clearly in a state of distress. What's going on? We shouldn't have anything to discuss anymore. Your fault has ruined my life. How is it my fault? Because I thought Stephen was rich, but you never clarified that, and I ended up with a jobless man. He talks about taking responsibility, but then says being a house-husband suits him, leaving me to work. I wanted to be a stay-at-home wife too. Now I'm juggling multiple part-time jobs. Is that so? And why was the property division so meager? Well, that's because we deducted your compensation from it. What? Christina seemed to understand after I explained. Since Stephen and I were only married for a year, the property division was based on 1 year's income, and then we deducted the compensation from that. It's understandable that not much was left after that, right? Christina was at a loss for words. But if you had insisted more on being the company president... But Stephen did explain, didn't he? As if I'd actually believed that. It's your fault for not believing him. Ugh, I'm so annoyed. Why are you always looking down on me? Because I'm the president, you know. Ugh. I'll write on the internet about how snobby and awful you are as a president. Is that a threat? I'll take legal action for defamation if necessary. Just so you know, that'll just make your money disappear again. Fine, I'm done. You'll never understand the suffering of the underprivileged. I don't want to be lectured on suffering by someone who tried to steal someone else's husband just because they're childhood friends. I made eye contact with my secretary, who nodded and promptly called security. Christina was escorted out of the company by security. I couldn't believe she actually barged into my company. Such a lack of common sense. And then, 2 weeks later, another person lacking common sense showed up at my company. It was my mother-in-law. She was yelling at the reception just like Christina had, so this time I went down to the lobby. Bringing her to the president's office was out of the question. I had no idea what she might do, so I decided to speak with her in the lobby where security could easily intervene. How dare you not let me into your office? You're a disrespectful daughter-in-law. That's impossible, you're a safety risk. What's that supposed to mean? Such a rude daughter-in-law. I'm not your daughter-in-law anymore, we're divorced. Shut up! I was making it simple. You're so insolent. You always look down on me, haven't you? Isn't it the other way around? You always look down on me. You called me a do-nothing housewife and insisted Stephen was the breadwinner. That's because you didn't explain it well enough. But I did explain. Stop talking back. Assert yourself more. You're saying the same thing Christina did. Birds of a feather, I suppose. That woman is useless, not earning enough. Even though she's working multiple part-time jobs? That seems rather unfortunate. Quiet! You're responsible for our hardship because you didn't explain properly. Why should I have to do anything for you? What about your husband? Her husband had been working and should be receiving a pension. He said he wants a divorce because of this situation. So he's fed up then. Quiet, don't be so blunt. If it's the truth, then it can't be helped. We're in trouble. Please help us. She eventually resorted to tears in an attempt to sway me, but it was futile. I'm sorry, but you need to give up. Continuing this would be considered harassment, and I'll have to call the police. Police? Are you a demon? I'm begging for help, and this is how you respond? You're being too convenient. After all, you were the one who encouraged us to split. I apologize, please. I'm really sorry. She even went as far as to kneel, but I remained unforgiving. Security was called to escort her out of the building. Later, I received an apology email from my ex-husband who assured me that Christina and my mother-in-law would not bother me at the company again. If they did, I wouldn't hesitate to involve the police. It seems my ex-husband, Christina, and my former mother-in-law are living together, struggling due to their poor financial management and lavish spending. While it's none of my concern, I find a bit of satisfaction in their hardships. Meanwhile, I continue to focus on my work, dedicated to growing my company for the sake of my employees. I'm committed to working hard and making my company even more successful.